that better? All right. So now I said all that stuff. So just turn in your Bibles to John 13. And we're going to go look at verses 34 and 35 to start with. And we're going to go through a lot of Bible stuff today. So you either be quick with your flipping through the Bible or just listen carefully. First thing here. And this is, in some Bibles, this may be red, which means it should be read in all Bibles, R-E-A-D, but in some Bibles, R-E-D. That's red the color. If it's red the color, typically it means who said it? Jesus. Okay. And he says here, a new commandment I give unto you, that ye love one another. You see where we're going with this today? Okay. As I have loved you, that you also love one another. He put that in twice. Love one another as I have loved you, also love one another. It's kind of an important thing. By this shall all men know that you are my disciples, if ye have love one to another. I'm just going to start here. And the first thing I want you to take a look at is that he doesn't give us a suggestion. He doesn't give us good advice here. It says, I give you a new commandment. Okay, so this is something that we not just should do, something that we have to do, something we must do. It's not a choice. It's a commandment. And last time I heard what a commandment was, it means it's a command. And he means it. So he meant the command. It's a commandment. It's not something to take lightly. It's very, very important. And he says it twice about what we're supposed to do. And in between those two times he said what to do, he says, as I have loved you. Now we look at that phrase, as I have loved you, we look at that after the fact. And we can see how exactly he loved us and he loved them as disciples. And then in verse 35, a fun thing here is that when we do what we're supposed to do by loving one another, we are marking ourselves as followers of Christ, as Christians. I know now it's not the cool thing to say Christian, it's supposed to say Christ follower, whatever. It's the same thing. This will show people that we are his disciples, that we are his followers, that he's the most important thing in our lives, because we love one another. So not only is this his command to us, it is also something that that's important to him, because if this gives proof that we are followers of him, if we're not doing this, we are misrepresenting him. And then when we tell people that we're followers of Christ, they say, what's the big deal? Because they're going to know that you're followers of Christ by your love for another, because you're going to love each other like Christ loved us. Now you may ask, how did Christ love us? And I'm glad you did, because that's the next thing I'm going to talk about. In Romans 5, verse 8 through 10, we read, but God commendeth his love toward us, that in that, while we were yet sinners, Christ died for us. Much more then, being now justified by his blood, we shall be saved from wrath through him. For if, when we were enemies, we were reconciled to God by the death of his Son, much more, being reconciled, we shall be saved by his life. This tells us something pretty interesting as well. We see how he loved us, that he died for us, okay? That's pretty hardcore love, to lay down your life for somebody. Even more so, dying for your enemy. Now, if we're supposed to love each other like Christ loved us, we're supposed to love each other and show love for each other while we may be at odds. Well, we are each other's enemy perhaps at a time. Not an easy thing. Not an easy thing at all. But that's how Christ loved us. That's how God loved us. And he said love each other like that. It should be easy for that. We shouldn't be our enemies. But sometimes we don't get along. It's important. We love each other as Christ loved us. Now we go back to John. We're going to fast forward. I told you we're flipping around all over the place today. We're going back to John. We're going to fast forward a couple chapters, and Jesus is talking again. And this is obviously something that's very important to him, because he states this again. He says, starting in verse 12 of chapter 15, he says, this is my commandment. Again, my commandment. that ye love one another, as I have loved you. Now he's going to go into a little further now. He's going to tell you exactly how that is. He says, greater love has no man than this, that a man lay down his life for his friends. This is how he's telling them straight out now. This is how I love you, that I'm going to lay my life down for you. This is how you are to love each other. You're my friends if you do whatsoever I command you. What was his commandment? That you love one another. His commandment, you show that commandment, you're my friends. Henceforth I call you not servants, for the servant knoweth not what his Lord doeth, but I have called you friends. For all things I have heard my Father, I have made known unto you. Ye have not chosen me, but I have chosen you, and ordained you, that ye should go and bring forth fruit, that your fruit should remain. And whatsoever ye shall ask of the Father in my name, he may give it you. These things I command you, that ye love one another. So important. He not only says it a couple different times, he says it multiple times within those times. When God repeats himself, we need to heed that. We need to pay attention. Because if it's that important to him, because we're dumb, stupid people, and we don't get things, and God knows that. That's why he wrote the Bible the way he did. That's why it's set up the way it is, because we get some things here, we get some things here. It's not a theology textbook where we have all this section here of this area and this section here of this area, and we get all this done, because you know what? When we read the Bible, we're going to read, if we could read through it, if we read parts here and there, we're going to pick up the same type of things in all different parts of it. He doesn't want us to miss anything, so he repeats the things that are very important. This is very important. I can't say that strong enough. Jesus couldn't say that strong. He said exactly strong enough because his word's perfect. But I can't reiterate that strong enough. Give our lives for each other. That's the kind of love that we're supposed to have for each other. Serve each other, help each other, be there for each other. I mean, really, if you think about, if you are willing to give your life for somebody, then you can do all the other little things too. And it's not going to be a big deal. You can do things that might be a little thing to you, might be huge to somebody else. You know, just a little thing, a little act of kindness. It's important. We need to do that for each other. Oh, I'd give my life for you. Yeah, but will you help me with putting gas in my tank? Whatever. Little things. Little things. And big things. All things. Love one another. We need to love one another. Now we're going to go through some scriptures here. I want to let the scriptures speak for themselves, because God did a great job putting the Bible together. I'm just going to read some things, maybe put a couple words here and there after, just to give you the gist of what's going on. But these are important things. If you want to, you don't have to flip around. If you want to listen, maybe write them down on your paper, or make notes in your tablet or whatever you're using, or your phone or whatever. But these are things. Whenever you feel, I don't know, how should I love one another? Well, let's take a look at how we should love one another. First, let's go to Romans 12, and these are all they're all in order too. So if you want to flip, it makes it easy for you. Romans 12:10. It says, be kindly affectioned one to another with brotherly love, in honor preferring one another. Hey, that's telling us that we need to love each other compassionately, thinking of the other person ahead of ourselves. Not putting us first, putting them first. Brotherly love. Kindly affection. You see, these things are kind of emotional. It's kind of saying, man, I need to help you out. I need to be there for you because, you know, you're more important than I am. Compassion. Romans 13:8 says, owe no man anything but to love one another. For he that loveth one another hath fulfilled the law. So it's our debt. We should treat our love one another as a debt. I owe you my love. I owe you to love you. 1 Thessalonians 3:12. And the Lord make you to increase and abound in love one toward another and toward all men, even as we do toward you, to the end he may establish your hearts unblameable in holiness before God, even our Father, at the coming of our Lord Jesus Christ with all his saints. And also with 1 Thessalonians 4:9, but as touching brotherly love, you need not that I write unto you, for ye yourselves are taught of God to love one another. And indeed, you do it toward all the brethren which are in all Macedonia. But we beseech you, but we beseech you, brethren, that ye increase more and more. See, Paul's writing to the Thessalonians here, and obviously they got the love thing down pretty good because they're loving each other. It's a good thing. They're all feeling it. It's all right. But Paul says here, hey, yeah, you got it, but I'm writing this, and there's a couple things in here. I'm telling you again and again. Let it abound and let it increase. Do it more. Don't stop where you're at. When we love each other, we need to love each other increasingly. And here's a good one, 1 Peter 1:22. Seeing you have purified your souls in obeying the truth through the Spirit unto unfeigned love of the brethren. See, he's saying good things. You're doing this as everything's good. Now he says, see that you love one another with a pure heart fervently. Fervently love one another. Putting your all into it. Not just loving them because it's convenient for you to love them at that time, but loving each other when they need to be loved. Being fervent about it. See, love, we talk about love in our fundamental Baptist circles. We say love is a commitment. Love is it's a verb. It's what we do. But you know what? There's emotion in there too. There's fervency. There's compassion. There's a lot of things. Love is a lot of things. It's not. We can't put it in a little box. God is love, and He's a lot. And He gave us this command to love each other. There's a lot involved with that. It includes our hearts, our heads, our actions, or our hands to make it alliterated. Fervently. Now, we can look at 1 John 3:11. It says, for this is the message that ye heard from the beginning, that we should love one another. Then in verse 12 it goes on and talks about Cain. It says, not as Cain, who was of that wicked one, and slew his brother. And wherefore slew he him? Because his own works were evil, and his brother's righteous. So he's like, love one another, as opposed to being evil. Be good, don't be evil. Love one another, don't be evil. Good, bad. Cain, no, not good. Love, good. So just as just opposed to being evil, you want to be opposite of evil? Love one another. We can go to 1 John. There's a lot in 1 John. There's a lot in John. John is the apostle of love. 1 John 3:23 says, and this is his commandment, that we should believe on the name of his Son, Jesus Christ, and love one another as he gave us commandment. Now, we already went over the whole commandment thing, but it's just a way that we love each other because, hey, it's our duty to obey God, to keep his commandments, his commandment being love one another. It's our duty. Still 1 John, let's look at 4:7. Chapter 4, verse 7. Beloved, let us love one another, for love is of God. And everyone that loveth is born of God and knoweth God. He that loveth not, knoweth not God, for God is love. So this, when we love each other, it's a part of our relationship with God. Our relationship with God should manifest itself in love toward another, each other. And we'll go on. Just a couple verses down. John 4:11 and 12 says, beloved, if God so loved us, we ought also to love one another. No man has seen God any time. If we love one another, God dwells in us, and his love is perfected in us. We love one another because God can make that possible. He proves his work in us as we love one another. Kind of goes full circle to what we started with. People will know that we follow him because we love one another. When we love one another, it shows him working in us. So if we have a problem loving one another, we have a problem with our relationship with God. Do we truly love one another? Just think in your mind. Your relationships with all your fellow believers, and you think, do I truly love them? Do I put them in front of myself? Do I fervently try to make their lives better? Do I fervently try to bring them closer to Christ? Am I compassionate? Do I act out that love, that care, that compassion? Do I do these things? Do I love one another? And I can tell you that when I think about that, I fall short. I fall way short. And that's not cool. But it's something I have to fix. Because God said, my commandment to you is to love one another. And all these things that we've been going over with one another, how we're dealing with one another, about just from our greetings to our hospitality, our service, our exhort, our, encouraging one another, serving, putting up with each other in forbearance, being unified in unity. All these things come together. We made it open, everything. We opened our hearts. We opened our homes, our hands, opened our minds, opened our arms, opened the gates. And when we love one another, we open it all. All these things that we went over, all these things that God says, do this one to another. All these things and more. Anything else that you can think of that's good, that helps one another, shove that in there and love one another. Open it all. Love one another even as Christ loved us. And he loved us so much that he gave his life for us. And no greater love is that. So love one another.